What up, YouTube? Welcome back to another trade review session. In this video, I am not super excited. I am going to be breaking down for you how I lost money today. It was what falls under the category of what I would define as a break-even day. Anything for me like plus or minus 500 to 1,000. Like that's the break-even-ish category for me. It means I didn't really take or make or risk anything giant, right? But the part that's very frustrating about today is had I not changed my trading plan and adjusted my trade, I would be up a solid amount of money. So coming into the day, the very first thing that I did is I have been posting all of my levels for the day inside of the free section of our Discord each morning. So today, coming into the day, the levels that I was paying attention to were these four, right? And obviously we were opening up pretty far away from these two lower levels. So they weren't necessarily in play for me right off the bat. Those would be more of targets later down the line, right? The two levels that were in play right off the bat were 876 and 812. So after posting these levels in the Discord, I ultimately, which again, free, click the link down below. We're giving away, we have like 700 more prop firm accounts to give away. We've on our 1,000 account giveaway, completely free to join, link down below. But I, coming into the day, started to formulate my plan and ultimately was told kind of by the chart that I'm not super interested in any longs unless we can get above 23,876. Now, above there, I am potentially very interested in going long if we can crack and hold above that level, because that on the daily chart would have been us triggering outside of like a daily 1, 2, 3, right? Breaking above that bar's high or near that bar's high, right? Well, on the flip side of it, to the downside, I wasn't interested in anything unless we got under 812 or were headed in anticipation of breaking under 812, because under this level, I thought we actually had quite a bit of room. And I didn't necessarily expect that we'd get all the way down to the lower level down here, but breaking out of this level, I thought could see a solid move to the downside. So coming into the day, a rare thing for me, I was actually more watching for shorts than I was for longs, which again is quite rare for me. Most of the time, I'm watching for longs, not shorts. You might be asking, Jake, why are you normally watching for longs, not shorts? Well, that's a very interesting question. And if we were to refer to the 10-year monthly chart, this is why I am mostly watching for longs, not shorts, because the market mostly goes up, right? So inherently, I am looking for longs most of the time. And even though today the market was at all-time highs, was a risk to be considering shorts, considering that we could have had an upside rally. But I was just trusting off of what the levels were telling me, right? And how we were reacting to those areas. So the part that frustrates me is I had a good entry today and I didn't allow it to just do its thing, which normally I'm great at. I actually on podcasts before have even talked about how I am not a huge fan of moving my stop loss to break even. And I actually very rarely to never actually move the hard order to break even. The vast majority of the time, what I do, if I end up taking a break even trade, is in the moment, I will decide that the market is kind of looking differently than it previously was, and I will exit. So how that comes into play today is I let this first 5-minute bar of the day close. We had failed to go higher above these highs, giving us the potential to ultimately move down into the level and beyond. And I ultimately ended up waiting about 7 or 8 minutes in the day before taking a short with a stop above these highs. Now, you can see we never broke above those highs. So theoretically, I should still be in this trade, or at least have been holding some of it down into a lower position, because the stop never hit. That line literally was what I was saying on stream. I turned off the stream a bit ago. That line is what we were using on stream as the area to be wrong. And instead, once this bar here closed, once this bar spiked under the open, got back above, that is where I closed my position, which is a little bit annoying because I had some profit, right? And I ultimately ended up taking what was like a I don't know, like 8-point loss or something like that. Yeah, it was not a very big loss. Again, what I would 8 points to up or downside in my eyes on the NQ falls under the break even category, right? But had I waited just a hair of a second longer, this bar would have started to fail and I would have been fine. Or had I just left my original stop order there, the risk on this trade was not large. It was about 20 to 30 points, depending on exit fills and depending on if you gave it a couple extra points to stop. Like, this was not a wide risk trade. That's the part that's kind of like kicking me about this the most, is that sometimes, again, in an ideal world, I am not a fan of moving your stop loss to break even. I think you should try to let the trade play out, right? In today's instance, the reason that I did that was because I really thought that mechanically the chart had changed. This had tried to go lower and continue its downtrend under the opening print and instead put in a green hammer. And I put too much weight into one singular 2-minute candle, which is fine, but like I understand where my rationale came from, but I put too much weight into simply that 2-minute bar. And that ultimately caused me to miss a really good trade down, right? Again, in an ideal world, I don't like to raise my stop to break even at all. But if that's going to be a trade where I am going to do that, whether, again, not because I want, because the market is showing me something in the chart to do that, I would hope it's on a stop that's wide. You know, that way it's like, well, I had a lot of risk on the table. Now I'm reducing my risk. This stop was pretty tight. And ultimately, my risk was never really that much at all, right? And instead of just letting my small risk play out, I jumped in front and I pulled myself out of like a not wanting to be wrong and not wanting to. Again, is this the end of the world? No. Or is this what I would describe as a good problem to have? Yes. This is not the end of the world in any way, shape, or form. And it's interesting because lately that is something that I have been kind of going through a little bit, which is that on some of my losers, I have been exiting at break even or for small loss or small win more frequently than I normally do. Again, it's not a byproduct of me changing my strategy, my mentality, anything like that. It's just sometimes the market offers you different looks, and sometimes you end up in a little bit of a loop. And I think right now the loop I'm in is just closing my trade, being a little bit too defensive on my trades, which again makes sense coming off of a losing streak that I had in like July, and then now having kind of bounced back and having a couple of big winners. I think I'm still very defensive because I don't want to get into more of like, I don't want to lose in like a streaky form, so I'm keeping everything very tight, right? Which is fine on some level, but is going to hold me back like it did today when I would have been able to capture a relatively easy 100 points. It honestly would not have been much work to hold into this low. If I had held through this point, this would have been quite a trappy rally, but if I had held through this one, I feel confident I would have been able to hold through that one. And evidently, I just made that mistake today. So it's interesting. Today, before I leave for California this week for a wedding and then some family stuff, I am filming a variety of videos. That way I can kind of have some fuel in the tank while I'm gone. And this is the first of 2 that I am filming today. And this is a not fun one to film and record. And what's hilarious is that the next one is actually even less fun. That's going to be more of a deep dive into trading psychology, talking a little bit about the details of a second CRM trade I took on Thursday last week, which you'll hear about when you see that video. So with that being said, ultimately, not the best day for me. But again, if I could look back in the grand scheme of things and keep all of my losing days like this, then over the course of the time, everything will be completely fine, and I'll have no troubles whatsoever. So that being said, I hope you have a great rest of the day. I love you very, very much, and goodbye. Adios.